Hey, you guys, welcome to Special Education Academy. If we haven't met, I'm Mayer Cunningham, special education boss, helping families and individuals navigate and negotiate the 504 IEP process. We're so excited to have Ashley Mauceri here today. She is a certified teacher of the visually impaired, unbelievably in love with kiddos with differences and believes that they can learn like we do. And so, Ashley, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
So we're so excited to have you. You're so stinking smart. And so thank you for taking the time out of your busy day helping with kiddos to kind of answer some of our parent questions that we get. Because vision is what we would call an LID, a low incident disability. And I think the numbers continue to reduce, although I think that there's some uniquenesses in them that start to present. I think that kiddos, just from the kiddos that I've served the last couple of decades, kiddos that have complete blindness, I'm sure I'm wrong. The numbers don't seem to be as high or the percentages they used to be, but I have a lot of kiddos with CVI, cortical vision impairment, which is sort of like my natural hair color. Who knows what that is? And so I wanted to be able to talk a little bit about those and just kind of give us some insight and then kind of what the process is for families who have a child with a known vision impairment and what that looks like starting school, because that can be really, overwhelming. So again, welcome to the Academy. And we're so excited that you would share your information. And just as we get started, I usually save it for the end, but should somebody want to reach you, and how would they get a hold of you?
You can email me at IHearYouLLC, that's EYE, like your I, HearYouLLC@gmail.com, or you can find me on TikTok at See With Your Hands.
Awesome. Well, thank you. We appreciate you availing yourself to these families and other individuals that serve kiddos with disabilities. So I think the first question is, and I think, we're kind of we're overinformed as people now. I have a vision deficit, right? I can't see without my readers, right? I mean, I could if I needed to, but I don't have a prescription. And I think people just from the beginning struggle with, because we have so much information now, and we have so many vision therapies that do help families. I have a lot of families that don't understand why, if they're getting a vision therapy from a medical doctor, a great medical doctor, why they don't get vision services at school. So if you could just, in layman's terms, I know you're really stinking smart, kind of tell us what a vision impairment, blind or vision impairment means as an educational eligibility.
Right. So as an eligibility for education, what happens is we are seeing that their functional vision, so how they are using their eyes for their functional needs in a classroom or their academic needs in a classroom, are being are not working as well, or they are impeding their ability to completely learn like their grade level peers. It is not advantageous to what they're needing to do. And because of that, then we then go to the possibility of an eligibility and request evaluation. Pardon me.
Okay. And so is that, and I've seen some kiddos, bless their hearts, they have, and this is a terrible phrase to use, but they have like Coke bottle glasses. Would that be a vision impairment?
We can look at it. Just because you wear glasses does not make your child eligible for vision services.
Okay.
All depends on the state. In the great state of Virginia, where I am, it depends on what your acuities are, or if you have a congenital disability or a disability that is going to quickly progress. It also takes into consideration peripheral vision and what their diagnosis is. As you mentioned, cortical visual impairment, because we can talk about that later. That has to differences with acuity.
Okay, so you use a big fancy word, acuity. Tell me what that means.
So you always hear people, we just came out of the great COVID year of 2020, and everybody knows what 2020 means, 2020 vision. So that's your acuity, 2020. So that's how big your letters are reading at a 20-foot distance. That's where you get your acuity from.
Yeah. I didn't know that. I just thought 2020 was the name of a TV show.
Yeah, it's measured at 20 feet distance and how big the letters are. And that's where you get that acuity from.
So smart. You must have gone to school and everything. So, so in Virginia, how off from that normed expectation would you be? And I know that's a guesstimate. You're not a doctor, Well, you're not today. By the time you watch this video, she probably will be. But so what would it be for sure? Like what's a for sure range?
So what's an eligible, what would kind of
Yes,
be,
ma'am.
so what we say is that their acuity in their better eye. So for example, they could be completely blind in one eye, but in their better eye, their acuity has to be 20/70 or worse.
Okay. And so do I just, I mean, there's so many places now. I was in Sam's yesterday. I can get glasses for $89. So do I just go to a glass place and they will give me information, or how does that work for school?
So what we ask for is an eye report from an optometrist. So it can be in Sam's Club. There's optometrists in Sam's Club. Or
Okay.
but mostly by the time a child has a condition that is going to even be considered generally for eligibility, they're going to be seeing an ophthalmologist. Now the difference between an optometrist and an ophthalmologist is an ophthalmologist is going to be one that's going to specialize in severe eye conditions. They are going to be eye doctors that perform surgeries in corrective manner.
Okay. Wow. It's a lot of information about the eyes. Okay. So should a parent just wait till like let's say school starts next month and their kiddos are in kindergarten and just tell them when they get to school? What should we do?
If there's any question that your child is not seeing to where you think is on par, or you're seeing a little sitting there close to the TV, or you're seeing them turn to the side to look at something, you need to be proactive. Get them into the doctor immediately. Don't let the education component be the one that makes that deciding factor for you. Advocate for your kid and be in there and be ready.
Okay. So I kind of have a list here of, I'm an advocate, you're an advocate, we both serve kiddos, and those of us in the special ed world, kind of like doctors and nurses, we can begin to talk in our own legalese, and people have no idea what we're talking about. So can you tell me what a low vision evaluation is?
So low vision evaluation in the state of Virginia, what we call a low vision evaluation is going to be something that we actually request. So we come in, we bring them through eligibility. If they are deemed eligible, meeting the criteria, then
I'm just going to stop you real quick. So when you say we request, who's we?
We as in the district. I'm sorry, I forgot that.
Okay, so I'm just saying, but if mom has had her sweet cherub home, does she have to tell the district that, or they'll know to do that?
She has to tell the district to do that.
Okay, so she needs to ask for a low vision evaluation.
Low vision evaluation, and if a parent, those parents that are watching, if your teacher for the blind and vision impaired in your district is working closely with you, they will coach you through that.
Okay. Okay, perfect. Okay. So it's not like you're going to say it wrong.
No.
Okay.
So, and a very strong advocating teacher for the blind and vision impaired should be on top of that, because once they're found eligible, then that's when the ophthalmologist, a low vision exam is generally performed by an optometrist or someone that is a little more in depth with and knowledgeable about the equipment that can be used. They're generally specified by your state department for education, pardon me. And so we have multiple ones in each district in the state of Virginia. So then let's say you're one of my clients. I would give you, or by request, if you'd like me to come with you, generally that's the best form of really getting the best for your child, that we go with each other to that appointment. And we
to the doctor.
To the doctor, yes.
Oh, good. Okay. I didn't know you could do that.
I do as a subcontractor. Some districts.
Okay.
So, yeah, I'm glad you.
That cuts through a lot of telephone. That happened. Okay.
It does. And I'm a strong advocate in, especially as a subcontractor for the company that I work with, they greatly allow us, and most districts are very favorable for me to go with that parent. That way there's no, so as you said, there's no telephone. It's coming straight from, I'm hearing them, we're working together. Okay, this is what we need in the district, and we're coming back and coming straight back to that table and having those discussions of what the district needs to help us provide. In the state of Virginia, because we do have, and I'm only basing that off of the state of Virginia. We have the Department for the Blind and Vision Impaired.
Sure.
If the appointment is set up through the Department for the Blind and Vision Impaired, there's a lot of grant money that it's paid for, and that way, that equipment, because, and I know you'll understand this, parent, and most parents will say exactly, They're not just visually impaired when they're in the school system. They're visually impaired at home as well. So they need that equipment at home as well.
Yeah,
Therefore,
absolutely.
the grant money helps have that equipment available every year.
And when you say equipment, we're not talking about a wheelchair. We're talking about a braille.
A braille writer, what we call a monocular. It might be a light box, which is
A white cane,
a white cane.
a
And
seeing eye dog.
seeing eye dog is a little bit different. They will help you with that. You have to get through a white cane course first and prove that that the student or the individual can maneuver and have true orientation and mobility to a room or crossing the street.
Okay.
Have a seeing eye dog.
Okay, perfect. And so, so you go get the evaluation. We have the evaluation. How can the results from that evaluation help make recommendations to the school?
From the low vision exam or from the functional vision exam?
The low vision evaluation.
So what can help with that is showing exactly, because what you have is you have your eye report, which happens just in a normal eye exam. Then you come in, at this point, you come into the school. The teacher from the blind and vision impaired has performed what we call a functional vision assessment, learning media assessment. Those are two separate assessments. Yeah. And what they are is your functional vision and then your learning media. Exactly what size print are you seeing best? At that point, we take them to the low vision exam. We go through many different things. Okay, they're seeing best at this size with this monocular, or they're seeing best at distance with this CCTV, which is a closed caption television. Everyone kind of knows that terminology, but it might mean, or it does mean something different in the vision world. It isn't, closed caption television isn't going to always be bringing words to you as you see it on a screen. It's going to enlarge things, bring things closer to you. A lot of the most updated CCTVs are something as simple as a laptop or a Chromebook, or I have a Surface and you have a telescopic arm that comes off with a camera that's going to bring everything straight to the computer screen, and then software is going to read it to you. Very, very smart, even smarter than our smartphones.
Yeah.
So that type of equipment, and then that is brought back, and at that point, then we discuss, okay, this can be purchased with grant money through APH, through whatever is available in the state, and then we ask the district to pick up the.
Okay, and so so I get that you're making recommendations to the school for equipment. Is that the only recommendation that you make to this for equipment or for education?
No. So with a functional vision assessment, to clarify, that's what you're asking, right?
Right.
Okay. So with my functional vision assessment, I am then, once and as you asked, the low vision exam is something separate, but my assessment is going to say, okay, they're eligible. Now, are they eligible that they are going to just need some accommodations and I'm going to need to teach them how to use the equipment that we pull from the low vision exam? It might be, like I said, the monocular or the CCTV. Or is their vision severe enough? Do we see something congenitally, which means it came at birth, it was diagnosed at birth, they were born with that? Or is it progressive, that it's going to be a condition that's progressively going to get worse as they get older, that is going to determine whether they need braille instruction?
Okay.
And sometimes even their vision can be, and that's one of the questions that I get very often. Well, my child's vision is 20/60 right now.
Yeah.
And it's a tough decision. It's a tough moment that sometimes I really wish ophthalmologists would kind of give a little more information to the parents, to not make me the bad guy, to say, well, we need to be proactive. We need to be teaching braille, learning braille, just in case, because your child does have a progressive condition.
Okay, and the doctor would know. I mean, it's a lot being a parent. Period. The doctor would know based on the type of your eye condition if it's progressive.
Yeah.
And I mean, that would make sense as many, giftings and abilities and ways to get information that you have now, especially if they're going to go away, teach that instruction now.
Exactly.
Okay. So can you kind of tell us, and this sounds, odd, but what does your child see? So if a child is greatly impaired by their vision impairment or completely without vision, how do they see? And I love that your TikTok says what it says. how do they take in their world? Like, obviously we take in 99 billion% of our world visually. How do they take it in?
So that's what a learning media assessment determines. I am watching them. I will follow a child around for a great amount of time, not just one day. And I always stress to friends of mine that are in other districts, a true vision assessment cannot be performed in one day. You need to see them
Right.
in different settings, see them in the morning, see them in the evening, see how much the time progression throughout the day in a different lighting effects. To say, to determine whether they're taking in that information auditorily. Are they listening to everything and they're just sitting there and they're not touching anything? They're which can be seen a lot. No pun intended. I noticed that a lot of times children are very, especially young ones, are very unsure of their surroundings, so they don't reach out. They're taking information in completely by auditory input. Or are they taking in information tactily? Are they sitting there and they're reaching for things and they're tactfully with their hands exploring around? And so they're seeing with their hands because Braille is tactile.
Right. I have a lot of kiddos that end up, and I don't even know if this is the fault of the team. And even though auditory is not their primary media channel, we just read to them and we talk to them, and it makes me cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. And we don't teach them Braille, and so I take in information tactily. I take in information all those ways, right? But how do we keep from respectfully sitting and reading or just talking to kiddos, individuals that are visually impaired, to give them an educational product?
How do we keep them doing that?
Yeah, because I feel like that's the easier way to do things.
It is the easier way, but to be polite in that response, by doing that, you're teaching one helpless. They're not going to be able to do it. And I have children that I provide services to who have multiple disabilities. Do they cognitively understand Braille? No, they don't. But I still am putting tactile things in front of them. And are they cognitively understanding the Braille? I'm reading the Braille book to them, but they're feeling it as they're going on. You
Okay.
just remember, or just take into consideration, the parent needs to advocate for their child to not just be completely read to, because what will end up happening as well is that, for example, there's students that they didn't have that type of input. Someone did read to them.
Right.
And someone did sit there and put a spoon to their mouth. And
Right.
and now for them to touch a French fry, for them to touch anything, to do finger paint, they can't. They won't do it.
Right. I have a kiddo that I serve, and he has cerebral palsy. He's quadriplegic. He has partial use of one arm, and in 6th grade we started teaching him Braille. He's doing great. You know why? But it's we had so much. Well, it has to be both hands. Well, it has to be this. And I think we put all these barriers, and kiddos are just ridiculously amazing. Like, they want to. Everybody can learn, right? And so, when would just like we don't do dyslexia screeners till 3rd grade. If you were the mama of a kiddo with a vision impairment and knowing what you know, what day, what year, what time would you want Braille to start?
There's pre-Braille out. The second that child is able to reach out and start touching things, I would start pre-Braille skills. We call it the pentagraph. So I mean, it's something as simple as helping them putting Cheerios out and teaching them hand over hand to explore and start picking up those Cheerios. That simple task will result in great improvement and great stability in learning Braille as they move forward.
Okay, and how would somebody, because you're this first time I've ever heard of it, how do we get to find out what pre-Braille skills are without knowing you?
Hopefully there's an early interventionist in your area, so you would reach out to your rehabilitation services in your
like
state. ECI.
Would ECI know about that?
Yeah, I would know about that. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And it all depends. Sometimes it's provided through the school system, depending on how their staffing is. Other times it's through the state.
Okay. So how do you know if a child should use, or maybe it's both? How do you know if they should use large print or Braille?
So it depends. I actually put large print in front of them depending on how severe their acuity is.
Okay.
So a lot of times I have students that are 2200 is considered legally blind. If a font needs to be larger than when you're hitting 18-point font, that's considered large print. If you're hitting font that's larger than 24 to 26 for a child to be able to read it, you're really just, I mean, and this is how I say, especially as they move further in their education, the bigger font, the more pages there have to be to get
It's like, yeah, the declaration of,
yeah.
I mean, it's not realistic.
Exactly. And so I have students where I'll walk in and the case manager says, oh, well, they couldn't see the 26-point font. So we enlarged it to 32, but they just, give middle school. But they won't use it. They just, well, of course, a middle schooler, when everybody else's packet is this thin of material, and because you've enlarged it so much, their packet's this big.
Right. Right. Okay, that makes sense. So does large print cause your eyes to strain?
It can, depending on your eye condition. Another misconception is not all eye conditions need large print to help the condition.
Okay.
And not to get way ahead of myself and confuse you or anyone else. There are eye conditions that their peripheral is so small that if you think about it, something larger, they're having to scan just to be able to see one letter.
Okay. Okay. So is there a way to make your, except for, on the internet, is there a way to, obviously I wear readers because I'm, 20 years old. Is there a way to reverse your eye condition?
Generally not. No, there's not. And
are your eyes like tires? They're good for 100,000 miles. And
yeah, I always, and I'm glad that you asked that question because a lot of times I'll have a parent come in to an IEP meeting and we'll say, oh, so my child is going to be receiving vision something. So they're not going to have glasses forever.
right.
Now, you did mention earlier vision therapy, and that's something separate, and sometimes things can improve. But an eye condition is not going to. You're not going to be born with optic nerve hypoplasia, which is very quickly just the entire optic nerve is off. That's not going to all of a sudden just get better. It'll stay the same. It should, but it's not going to miraculously. Now, cortical visual impairment, that's different. They can progress and move higher through the phases and be able to resolve from some characteristics.
Okay. Should my child who's visually impaired participate in sports?
Absolutely. Okay. Don't ever let somebody tell you that your child cannot participate in sports. And the reason that I say that is I have a student who is visually impaired who is on the softball. Yeah.
You do?
He's also non-ambulatory. He's in a wheelchair. And at the end of the game, they bring a tee out and they let her take a bat and she swings and she hits it with a little bit of assistance and she goes around the bases. There are sports specifically for visually impaired children. There's football. They can run track. There is someone on the Olympic team that is visually impaired who is going to be Paralympics, but I mean that's an amazing swimmer and track player.
Right. That's amazing.
Don't ever let anybody your child can't at least attempt it. Accommodations can be made.
Okay. Are there, and this is a big reach, are there medication, surgeries, or eye transplants to restore my child's vision?
There are surgeries that can improve some vision, but it depends. That's a question that I really don't 100% feel comfortable answering.
I mean, are there some somewhere? I mean, I've had lots of families say, well, you're about to have this surgery and that's going to improve your vision. I'm like, I thought it was just to not make it worse, but I don't know.
It can improve. The business can improve. A child that has strabismus or amblyopia, things of that nature, they can have surgeries that can improve the muscles in the eye. Improve, not cure.
Okay. And what about is there gene therapy or stem cell therapy? I mean, I get that a lot for my kiddos with autism and behavior, and I've clients have gone to Panama. Do I recommend that? I don't. I've had clients that have had all their kids' blood taken out and new blood. I mean, I'm respectfully, if that's what you want to do, that's not my business. But it's not been my experience that that works. But
I've I have not had that experience happen with any of my students, and therefore I don't feel comfortable answering that.
yeah,
But if it's out there, then do your research and try it.
yeah. So if a kiddo has a vision impairment, do they spend part of the day in general ed and then they take them away to a special class?
That all depends on how their other eligibilities are. I hate to say this, but they say, are they just plain old blind? People say that all the time. I'm like, no, they're just plain old blind.
People
don't
say that?
Yeah.
Oh,
They're just plain old blind, as in that vision is their only exceptionality. Okay. So if their vision is their only exceptionality, then they can be in general ed. They're pulled out. We teach them Braille. I teach them Braille. TDVI teach them Braille. Or we go in and we sit in the classroom and we make sure things are performed for them. They have, communication paras that are right there with them, helping everything move along as so that they can be advantageous in their studies. But they do not have to be hidden in a room somewhere.
in a room down the hall.
Yes, because in the early days, you were institutionalized if you had a visual impairment.
All right, let me ask you, one of my dearest friends, her son is completely has no vision and has had no vision from birth, National Honor Society student. And if you weren't in this space and did kind of what you and I do, he does have some, I think other people would call it behaviors that look unique, and that he moves a lot. Can you tell us a little bit about why individuals with a vision impairment move a lot in their space?
So a lot of times you will see someone who has a visual impairment, they'll rock a lot, which then, and I think that's what you mean. And a lot of times I've had teachers say, do you think we need to consider autism because they're rocking?
Yes.
Because it does happen a lot. There's different things. It's just a stimming thing for them. The movement kind of is relaxing. It also triggers sometimes nerves in their eyes that they get. If you look at a light and then you close your eyes and you get those like bright illuminations like behind you. Sometimes not someone who is completely blind, but there's a lot of visual impairments that they stim and they'll look at a light gaze because it's stimulating.
Okay, but that's not unusual. It's not something. I've had teachers that we need to write a goal for that. No.
I do teach my students that as they get a little bit older, it may not be socially appropriate. So we work on it, but it's not something that it's a goal that I'm going to make them stop. I'm saying, be aware, you're rocking a little bit. There's a time and a place, but.
And so how would, for instance, and my hair is never not hairsprayed, but if it is, I can't keep my hands out of it. If it's soft, I can't keep my hands out of it. So I'm not I guess I'm choosing to do that. But for my friend's child who's beautiful and wonderful and hysterical and amazing, does he know that he's rocking? So us making him stop, why? Is that, I feel like that's about us. That's not about him.
It is. I will tell you that I have said it to students before. Sometimes they do know. It depends on the other exceptionality. If they have other things, then they don't understand. But if
and this is his only disability.
Okay. Well, then I'm not sure. I have a few. I don't have any that are that visual impairment is their only.
That are just plain old blind.
I don't say that.
I'm just teasing. Yeah, but I mean, is it really about?
It's about.
It's about us, right?
I'll make there have been studies that say people who smack their lips, it doesn't bother them. It bothers the other person. So you've got to deal with it. If I sat here, bothering
Right.
me, not bothering me, and most people don't understand it. So yeah, I agree. I have, let me retract what I said earlier. In my position that I'm in now as a subcontractor, I have never told a student that they needed to stop. When I worked in a different position, and I'm not going to say where that was, where I was in a specific school,
Right.
not a contractor, we were told at that specific school, that was a state school, and it was not in Virginia, that we were to tell them that they should not rock. That was not
Right. And I've always thought about it that I think it's, to me, it's funny that it's not socially appropriate. Says who? The socially appropriate police. And he doesn't know that we're not all rock. Maybe we should be rocking.
I'm going to be honest. I love music. I'm constantly humming something in my head. I'm usually like, where I'm rocking, I'm getting to it. You know,
Right.
it's it's a coping mechanism for people who are not even
Right.
on any type of eligibility. So yeah.
Right. So yeah, I just think I just want to just not go there, not even park there, but all of a sudden, and I love my families, but I see things come and go in waves in special ed. Sort of, I think of it sort of like, when you have kids, when you have my first kid, he had to sleep on the back. Second kid, it was the side. Third kid, I don't even care. I hope you sleep, right? And what's the norm now? And it moves. And I've seen this onslaught, and I love my families, of families getting all of these autism assessments for their kiddos that are profoundly vision impaired. And I'm a professional nothing. So I don't know where that has sort of like come up from. Is that something that you're seeing more when you serve kiddos?
Yeah.
And I do believe there's a comorbidity. I do believe that exists sometimes. But I think the likenesses of these behaviors, kind of rocking, is not stemming. It's just not. And so certain kinds, and it's sort of, it's like I'm opening Pandora's box and then say don't say anything. But I've just, in the last 5 years, it's like if another one of my family says I'm gonna take him for an autism evaluation. Well, I've never seen that they didn't meet eligibility, because you have social deficits, you have communication deficits, you have behaviors that look like they're stemming.
Well, and also there has been what I'm seeing more of is a child who has a cortical visual impairment. It's being misdiagnosed because the characteristics of cortical visual impairment and those children who are found on the spectrum are very,
Very close.
very.
Yeah.
And for those that may or may not know about cortical visual impairment, a child can have, now that we know the word acuity, we need to explain that, a child can have 20/20 acuity and still have CVI. They can see fine. It's the processing in the cortical part of their brain that's not processing with their seeing. It's like, we like to say it's like living in a world of where's water. Everything is extremely complex and they're not processing.
Okay. So if there's nothing wrong, and I'm very much a layperson, and somebody explained to me, there's nothing wrong with their eyes. Their eyes are completely healthy. It's a neurological disconnect.
Right.
So I'm an assumer. Couldn't we one day connect it?
Exactly. Yeah. And that's why I said cortical visual impairment, there's phases. So you have phase 1, which a child just to kind of very, very small, I could go on about this weeks. I love it.
I love CVI.
A child with cortical visual impairment on phase 1, you're going to see them, light gazing to where it's very hard to break that light gazing. Staring at a light or the sun out the window. They're going to have a lot of visual latency. So if you're showing something over here, if they'll even turn to it, it's going to have lights and sound, and they'll very slowly turn to it. They're going to have a preferred color. Kids that are on a phase 1, they love Elmo. Elmo is usually a big one. And that's a lot of times when I'm testing the child with CPI, I've got an Elmo, there's a lot of, like I said, complexity, as in if they are going to reach for something, it's got to have a black background. Also, the complexity of the hand coming into the picture is going to be too much. They might have an Elmo sitting in front of them, You'll see them gazing at it, but for them to reach, as soon as their hand comes into their peripheral view, they turn their head because that's
Oh, even their own hand.
even their own hand. Yes,
Okay.
you see it a lot. That's a phase one. They won't look. They can't distinguish faces. And then they move into phase two, and you start to see a lot of those characteristics. And then phase three is even more.
Okay. Yeah, it's such a deep dive. I've so many kiddos with vision impairments, and I'm just always amazed and stunned how stinking smart they are.
Mm-hmm.
But it's just, we all have biases. I'm not gonna say we're we just all have biases. If somebody walks up in front of me and is 600 pounds and they're walking towards me, I have a ticker tape of biases that come down my brain. I just do. Why that happened, why it shouldn't, all these things, right? And for me, if I wasn't in this space, I would think of respectfully individuals with vision impairment as having a cognitive deficit. And that is my experience. And other people will say, like, hi. I'm like, what are you doing? what are you doing? How are you? I'm going to need you to back up.
Yeah.
And I feel like it's so misunderstood. Even, just antiquated. I think we do great with kiddos with auditory impairment and sign and all this, but it's still VI is sort of like, people don't even know how to talk to them, right? And there's so much, and I'm sure the percentages. I had somebody explain to me, if I said, hey, Ashley, look, there's an orange squirrel. You and I know what we're respectfully looking for. How do you teach somebody what an orange, and so God bless you. What you do is like crazy, amazing, fantastically awesome. But what would you recommend to parents for their student that has a vision impairment? So respectfully, they don't end up in the room down the hall.
They do, or so that they don't.
So that they don't.
So you want to make sure that you are having every test imaginable. Ask for tests, ask for evaluations, ask for the evaluation. The more data, the more evaluations you can have that prove that your child is able to learn with their grade level peers. And I don't even like the word grade level peers, but to be there with their peers.
Meeting expectations.
Meeting expectations. Then yes, is going to be money in the bank and cashing out. That's going to be the best tools you can have walking. The worst that's going to happen is they do an evaluation and they say we didn't find anything, but all of those building blocks are going to help build the best Lego foundation. I always like to say, you want all the Lego blocks, you got to know what to build. So, and
we're in the great state of Texas, and we have Texas State School for the Blind and Visually Impaired, and I think they're the best in the world. When they talk, I'm like, I'm silent, which never happens. Yep. And they make it sound so user friendly. And so, one of the things I do for kiddos in school, and I just did it for a 20-year-old, the school was so happy. I said, so we want a visit, an assessment from the TSVVI. Oh, I don't think we can do that. You can. Well, they're very backed up. I said, do you want me to call them? So in your state, do you have something like that? Like where the state, we used to say the state school for the blind, but the state vision at the state level, would they come in and give what we call it an assist? And they come in, they're Switzerland. They don't come to the IEP meeting. They don't want to meet people like me, but they just come in and they give them input at the highest level of more ways that a kiddo could learn or ways that we could adjust so he learns better.
Yes. I don't know what's going on in other states. Again, I can only speak for the state, the great state of Virginia, the great state of Texas. But we have very many organizations that come in. We have the Department for the Blind and Vision Impaired that have many providers that will come in very in depth. And I have called them in before to say, I need a second opinion. I'm seeing some things and I'd like to have a second opinion. And they come in. It's all grant done. We also have,
and there's no cost to the parents.
No, there shouldn't be. Don't let someone tell you that there is. We also have TPAC, which is through a lot of our institutes in the state of Virginia. A lot of the colleges have funding that have paid for things to come in.
Okay, that's so good. I think that's. I had a kiddo. I want to tell you his name, in the district, and I think there were 27 of us on the Zoom, 3 attorneys for me. And can't learn, CBI, all these disabilities, all these medical conditions, not ambulatory. And he is tearing it up because we got him the right communication device. We got him that assessment, which I don't need to be right. I need for kids to win. Let's clear that up. And it was just somebody who's Switzerland, but they're the best at that's what they do. That's their specialty. And so I certainly want parents to avail them up. There's no age limit. Anytime that we can get more input from somebody from another facet, it's just going to help kiddos win. So thank you for being on. Would you come back if we had more questions from families?
Absolutely. Anyone can reach out to me.
Thank you. Let me ask you one closing question. Not that I've ever had a closing question. How does one, so I'm in the great state of Virginia. I have my degree because I went to college and finished. And I want to be a certified teacher for the blind or the visually impaired. Tell me what you just go to the certified teacher drive-through? What does that look like?
It depends. There's actually not a lot of colleges in the state of, there's not a lot of colleges in the United States that provide programs to become a teacher for the blind and vision impaired. I was fortunate enough to go through Marshall University, as Wondering heard, out of the state of West Virginia, and be able to get all of my my graduate studies done. And then I finished up at Radford University. But you do not always have one in your state. So just do research. It was a 2-year program for me. You do have to take a Braille Praxis Proficiency. The Braille Proficiency, it is the United States test. I'm going to tell you right now, it's a doozy, but it's great. And I will say, a lot of times too, people will question, well, I work with students, but none of them are Braille learners. Why do I need to know Braille? You never know. And who doesn't want to learn Braille? I mean, it's like the coolest thing ever. I'm teaching my 8-month-old Braille. I mean, he's going to learn his alphabet and Braille at the same time.
And then that way I can use all the buttons at the ATM machine.
Yes.
Yes.
It's a great, and that's one of the things that when I'm telling my students, they're a little hesitant, like, why do I have to learn this? But you're going to learn a secret code. And they love it when I make it fun.
Absolutely. Any way that we can take in information, because all of us probably over time, our vision will be declining anyway. And so, again, thank you, Ashley. You are such an example of amazingness. Again, tell us how to reach you on social media or by email.
Email, like your eyeball, EYE, hear you. So EYEHEARYOU LLC @gmail.com, or on TikTok at See With Your Hands.
Awesome. Thank you again for being on the show. And again, you guys remember, we do this for one reason: successful student outcomes. When we get it right for the child, we get it right for everybody. And we will see you guys in the next video.